Well, hey everyone. This is Rick, and I am making this video. I want there to be some record. My ideas, just who I was, really. Let's hope I don't fuck up and do something stupid and blow my nose off instead of my fucking head.
I don't think he really thought he had a chance in life, that his life was already over. It had been ruined.
He would tell me, I just want to die. I'm just tired of this life. I'll never be free from this pain and this past.
The goal is to bring down those sick fuckers, Mama and Peter. My own mother. What an evil little cunt. God damn. How can you do that to kids? How can you do that to kids and sleep at night? I don't fucking know. Anyway.
You know, everything was backwards the way we were growing up, absolutely everything. And everything that was wrong, we were taught was right. Everything that was really evil and wicked and perverted was done in the name of Jesus. It really does fuck your head up.
I'm sorry, they're just...
2 months after Rick Rodriguez recorded his video, friends are holding his memorial. Like Rick, many of them were raised in a bizarre Christian sect who practiced free love.
We're here to say goodbye to a friend that we had, somebody who need not have passed the way that he did.
Like Rick, many of the mourners say they were abused in the cult. Originally called the Children of God, it followed a radical religious and sexual philosophy they named the Law of Love.
I wanted to show Alexia how many people had loved Ricky, how many lives that he touched.
The law of love. They could do anything that they wanted, really, as long as they did it out of love, you know. So they use that a lot for a lot of things, you know. For the sharing, you know, for the swapping of couples. So basically that was the only law that they lived under. Because they certainly didn't abide by society's laws, you know. It definitely didn't abide by those laws. It just gave them an excuse to do whatever they want to anyone, really, or with anyone.
The Law of Love was the creation of David Berg, founder of the cult, and promoted and encouraged through its publications.
I practice what I preach, and I preach sex, boys and girls, hallelujah. When I say fuck, you know what I'm talking about, don't you? Every one of you know, except maybe some of the little children. And our kids are so smart, they even know what that means. We don't think there's anything evil about it. We don't think there's anything wrong.
The circumstances of Ricky's passing are very tragic and uncharacteristic of Ricky as a person. Ricky would want this memorial, his memorial, to be a celebration of life, not a celebration of death.
Don Irwin grew up in the cult and was a close friend of Rick's. His mother, Judy, joined in the early days of the sect.
I actually joined in 1970, and of course I was 20, very vulnerable, didn't know what I was doing, you know. I had always, since I was a kid, wanted to do something for Jesus, so you kind of got drawn into the fact that it looked like they were doing something because there were numbers coming at you. And actually when I joined, there were 200 people. Within 3 years, there were 10,000 people.
The Children of God were founded in 1968 in Southern California. by a charismatic Baptist minister called David Berg.
Who will take the stand and heed the call?
At first, Berg preached a simple gospel, prophesying the second coming of Jesus. But as his popularity grew, his sermon became more disturbing.
Called to live and die for the kingdom as we give.
By the early 80s, as film from the time shows, Berg's band of hippie followers had mobilized into a disciplined army of converts. Changing their name to the Family, they fanned out across the globe.
For Jesus and David our King.
Kind of got sucked in, and I got sucked in before I knew I really thought I was joining a Christian organization. I thought it was what God wanted me to do. I had no idea that, it eventually would turn into dark betrayal.
To the outside world, the Family was a missionary organization, spreading their word from Mexico City to Manila. But behind the closed doors of their communes, free love was their theology.
At the age of 7, I remember it was in Panama, and it was New Year's. And I slept on one of these trundle beds that pulls out from a bunk bed. And I remember rolling over and looking, and there was the behind of one of the sisters in the home, and she was having sex with my father, less than a foot from me. I remember her name to this day. I remember getting up and going to the bathroom and looking in my mom's room, and my mom was having sex with the woman's husband. This wasn't an anomaly.
Okay, girls, but don't cover up too quick. They don't like
It was part of our doctrine, it was part of our dogma, and it was not something that was restricted to adults. We were taught that as children.
Well, he doesn't get to appreciate your beauty that often, so. We're just showing how we bed down here at night.
We love you.
Armed with camcorders, far-flung communes often recorded their exploits, sending David Berg messages of love.
Good night. We love you. Look at those girls.
I've tried so many things, trying to somehow fit in, somehow to find, a normal life. Everybody has said, who I've talked to about this, well, everybody has their problems, everybody has a fucked up life. But those people who say that, they had no clue as to what actually went on because they weren't part of the cult.
Rick was the result of a grand sexual experiment. His mother, Karen Zerby, was David Berg's favorite consort, and together they devised a revolutionary method of luring new recruits. It was called flirty fishing.
So flirty fishing basically consisted of family women, more commonly and occasionally men, going to places where they could meet people, bars and nightclubs and what have you, and making themselves available to these people, fairly readily available for sex. And then there was the expectation that they would lead these people to Jesus or pray with them to receive Jesus as their Savior.
Here you see Faithy as she witnesses to the Vice President of Book Company from Sweden. And he's asking her at this time, do you think I'll go to heaven? Very, very sweet man who really enjoyed their contact that night.
I was never asked to share until the FFing thing came out, and then it was kind of a pressurized thing. It was like, you either do it or you're out.
But what was it like to have to do that?
What was it like?
Yeah.
I don't want to go there.
David Berg, in his writing, refers to them as God's whores. My mother, when I use that terminology, my mother took exception to that. And I reminded her that it wasn't I who used the words God's whores, it was her founder. But yeah, she said she's proud about it and proud to have done it.
I mean, how does that make you feel now?
It bothers me, to be honest with you. I mean, and if you boil it down to its basic, my mother was a prostitute.
Karen Zerby was a hooker for Jesus, one of the first. On one trip to Tenerife, she records fishing 18 different men. One of them was a local waiter, Rick's father. David Berg wanted an heir apparent he could mold in his own image, so he adopted baby Rick, celebrating the new Messiah in the cult's publications and documenting his childhood in intimate family snaps.
He was almost like, I don't know, what would you compare that to? I suppose he was just very famous, you know. Probably one of the most famous. It's sort of like next to his dad, you know. It's like their family was like royalty, you know, and he was like a prince and a, you know, soon to be king sort of person.
But the mantle of leadership came with a price. Berg would also use his son as an ideological plaything, pushing sexual boundaries for a new generation of disciples.
You know, we may not believe in God. I don't. At least, certainly not the Christian fucked up God. This big fucking dick that he wants to stick up everybody's ass. But I don't know. I'm starting to think that life goes on, and that fucking scares me. That really does scare me more than anything. Because I don't know. I don't want it to go on. I want it to just be over.
He talked about suicide a lot. And I would ask him, you know, why he felt like that. Why did he want to die? And you know, he said, you know what, because I'm already dead.
Okay, we're back. So anyway, duct tape. You can fix anything with this fucking stuff. Yeah, I'm gonna fix some people with this. Anyway, okay, I'm sorry. I'm getting all off track here. Where the fuck was I? Suicide. Yes, suicide.
"24 hours after Rick recorded his video, he left his Tucson apartment and hit the freeway. Driving west through the Arizona desert, he made his last phone call to his estranged wife, Elixir.
He said he was afraid of dying. I told him that I believed in angels. And I told him that when he died, that he would feel love that he never got to experience in this world. And he told me, keep telling me nice stories. Different parts of the conversation, he's like, oh, I think I'm gonna pull in here and kill myself. And I'm just freaking out. It's like, what are you gonna do? By this time, he was really tired. I think he had been awake for like 2 days. And he just started mumbling words. He was like, I have to go now. He goes, I'm so tired. I'm so tired of thinking. You know, he just, it was just expressing thoughts, everything that was going through his mind. And then he was like, I have to go now.
I got in contact with my sister. Well, I consider her my sister because to me she is. She's not flesh and blood. But talking about Davida, she calls me sometimes and we talk. Tells me the stuff she's going through. And it just breaks my heart, you know, because I want to help her, but there's nothing I can do because it's all up here, you know. The damage has been done.
David Berg frowned upon conventional families, and Rick was raised by a coterie of female acolytes, along with a baby girl called Davida. The pair grew up almost as brother and sister. As the family's patriarch continued to break sexual and religious taboos, Rick and Davida became his latest playthings.
Growing up as a kid, I remember everything revolved in our lives around religion and sex. They expected us to have some interaction between ourselves with the intent that we would get married, and become the future heirs to the throne, so to speak, meaning that we would be the next future leaders, with the next gurus, the next David Berg and the next Karen Zerbe of our time.
Not only were Rick and Davida encouraged to have sexual interaction, they also shared David Berg's bed.
I must have been 5 years old. I was married, supposedly, to, I was going to become one of David Berg's brides. And there was a ceremony with the ring and everything, and once I turned 5 years old was when I was implicated into being one of his queens, so to speak. And I remember actually, I used to look forward to going and spending time with him in the evenings, me and Rick, because it was the only time that he would actually let us watch cartoons. We were absolutely not allowed to watch any TV whatsoever. And it was the only time that we watched cartoons. He would always let us watch Scooby-Doo. Well, we didn't look forward to Love Up Time, but that was part of the package. You get to watch Scooby-Doo and eat chocolate and have, loving interaction with Grandpa. There was never penetration, but up until about 12 years old, it was never penetration. It was just really all the other forms of molestation, touching and oral, and mostly just that. Except it was different with Rick. He always had intercourse with the adult women because as a little boy, I suppose it's a little different, you know.
It was actually very common in the family for the adult women to have sexual relations with young boys. The women not only had sexual relationships with the young boys, they were also facilitators. They also gave their children to the men. It wasn't just the case of sort of, sticking up for your mate or for your partner, the woman defending the man and being in denial because of it. No, they were active enablers and active participants in our abuse.
Rick and Davida even starred in their very own bedtime story, printed by the family as an example for all their children to follow. Chapters dealt with potty training, discipline, and sex.
The book was just written by my mother because my mother was the one that had raised Rick and myself. So she had just written these chronicles explaining on a day-to-day basis on how we interacted and what she was teaching us and what we were learning, and that included sexual encounters that she had had with him and how she used to masturbate him to sleep and how she would make sure that he would have his love up time before bedtime. It was just it's really, I don't know, you have to read the book. It's really... So that's what the Davidito book was. It was just a book written about our lives and how we were raised and how other people should imitate the way we were raised and try to do the best to raise their children accordingly.
By the early 80s, David Berg was on the run from Interpol on suspicion of pimping. Moving with Rick and Davida from one secret compound to the next, he never met ordinary members. Now, he commanded his female acolytes to send him strip videos. When his missive extended to young girls, English sisters Celeste and Christina also had to perform for his cameras.
That's, to me, disturbing, because this was just the start of much more.
Well, we were told we were dancing for God as well as Berg, didn't we?
Yeah,
and if everyone...
glorify God and dance. Yeah, it's just sad. It's just. David Berg wrote a letter called Glorify God and the Dance where he gave specific instructions about what he wanted to see on those dance videos. So it came right from David Berg. It was his idea and it was for him.
He's a little life, you know? She's a little life. And you just fuck them over because you're a sick fucking pervert and you don't have anything better to do with your life than to fuck up your little kids. It's just so far beyond me, I just can't fucking imagine it. But yet it happened. It happened right before me. It happened to all of you.
Celeste's strip video was filmed at the family's commune in Greece. Led by Berg's lieutenant, Paul Pelequin, this was the unit that most enthusiastically followed the example set by Berg with Rick in the story of Davidito.
I hold Paul Pelequin responsible because he ran the communes. His word was go. And he was the one that did those dance videos when I was in Greece. I remember him yelling and being quite physically violent with me on many occasions throughout my childhood. I remember particular sexual abuse when I was 9 years old. It was on the floor in the studio and I had to masturbate him. And he masturbated me, and then he masturbated himself in front of me. I remember that particularly, but I don't remember every instance because it happens so often.
Joan came to me and she said, "Well, since Dad suggested that I make love to him in the latest comment tape, do you think I should masturbate?" And I said, "Of course, that sounds beautiful."
He was the one that would use David Berg's writings to support his position and also help to set up the schedules that I would be put on for sexually servicing all the men in the home.
They didn't report to anyone else except for Berg. What happened in that location is they began to institute and institutionalize the pedophilia that Berg was already practicing in his personal household. And sadly, what happened with that inner circle as far as some of the guys were is it essentially became a pedophile ring. They viciously abused my sister and her friend Amy as well as Celeste in a very systematic way over a very, very long period of time. Now, the pernicious thing about all of this is that the children were enculturated to believe that this was normal.
It was really a beautiful experience. It really
Despite the allegations against Paul Pelequin, he has never been convicted of any child sexual abuse.
What about these, fucking perverts? Aren't they the real terrorists? Terrorizing little kids? Driving them to suicide? Isn't that like murdering them, basically? If you fuck with their mind so much that they can't go on, they really can't go on. Isn't that like killing them? I don't know, though. One of these fuckers to the head. I don't think there's gonna be much time to feel anything.
A few minutes after 8 a.m. on Sunday morning, our patrol officers got a call that there was a body here at the Palo Verde Irrigation District located inside a vehicle parked where you can see my car is now. Some of the things that we discovered in the car was a key card for the Holiday Inn Express, which is actually about 3/4 of a mile straight across here to the southwest. It looks like he probably took a shower, cleaned up, He drank some beers, looked like he had laid in the bed, but that he hadn't slept in the bed, and possibly watched TV and just rested after cleaning up, and then drove this short distance over to here. I think it was just a place where he thought he wouldn't be bothered. He could do what he felt he needed to do. It's a very sad story, and if half of what they say occurred happened, it needs to be hopefully looked into and get this abuse stopped.
God damn. I can only imagine what my sister goes through. She has nightmares about, being dragged out of bed in the middle of the night to go have sex with Berg. God damn.
It was very strange because during a lot of these sexual interactions, David Berg would be getting prophecies where he would speak on account of ghosts that he believed were possessing him, and they were, that were good ghosts that were saved or were Christian, but had gone on to heaven and that were living with Jesus. And he would burst out speaking in tongues, just exactly like they do in a Baptist church, where they have tongues and prophecy. And he'd lift his hands in the air when get a prophecy and say that was about, saying that was amazing sex that you just had with the ghost gypsy. The gypsy ghost is saying thanks. It was. He would get a whole prophecy. It was really disturbing.
Now aged 12 and sequestered in the family's secret HQ, Rick's degradation reached new extremes. In his father's eyes, incest was virtuous, and he encouraged Rick's mother, Karen Zerby, to join in their sexual games.
I specifically remember a couple of accounts where we were all in the same bed. I was required to be having sexual interaction with the guru at the time, David Berg, and I would be on his right side masturbating him while Rick would be having full sexual intercourse with his mother on the other side of the bed. But it'd be like a big happy family time in bed between the four of us.
There are a lot of things that I've sort of come to terms with, and I understand the issues of control in the family. But what I haven't come to understand yet is how such a large group of people of diverse backgrounds, of diverse ethnicities, of income levels can so readily turn to wholesale pedophilia. Not everybody engaged in it, but if you were in the family, you knew about it.
The family deny Karen Zerby ever had sex with Rick and say he himself never made this allegation. Nevertheless, whatever happened in David Berg's bedroom had a profound effect on Rick and his sister. In recent years, Davida has struggled with drug abuse and today earns her living as an exotic dancer.
Jesus Christ. Anger does not begin to describe how I feel about these people and what they've done. Rage.
We want to release dubs for Ricky, and I'm also going to read off the names of people that we've heard of people who passed away who were not remembered, but this first dub is for Ricky. Abe, Amos, Andrew Parker, Ben Farnsworth, Cheris Lloyd, Daniel Parker, Johnny of Stephen and Gina, Jonas, Richard P. Rodriguez, River Phoenix.
Rick Rodriguez is not the only child born into the family driven to suicide or to fatally overdose on drugs. Over the past 10 years, around 30 have died, including the actor River Phoenix, whose family were once members.
Well, Rick and I grew up together. We were born in the same country. same hospital. My mother raised us both, and I just wanted to say that if it wasn't for my family and friends who had been there for me, I can't say that I wouldn't have killed myself a long time ago.
Rick was amazing in every way. For the time in my life that I got to share with him, I have so many memories. From the first time we kissed to the first time we got our apartment.
These are all his driver's license. I kept them all. Him as a baby. That's what he looked like when I first met him. He went through a long hair stage. He was quite skinny at the time. I always liked taking pictures of him. He always get mad at me. But I'm lucky now because I have all these pictures of him.
Rick was 19 when he met Alexia at a family commune in Hungary.
He came down the stairs, beautiful smile, and said, "What are you doing?" And then we just started chatting. He's like, "Do you know how to play cards?" And I'm like, "No." He goes, "Do you want me to teach you?" So we went up to my room. He brought some music, and we just started playing cards. I think we played cards till like 2 or 3 in the morning. And we just talked and talked. I went to breakfast the next morning, went back to my room to get my stuff, get ready for the day, and he had put a rose on my bed. And never the same after that.
After you're gone, oh Dad, it's gonna break my heart, the love you've shown to me.
With the spread of AIDS and international authorities hot on his heels, David Berg was finally forced to act. In 1986, he banned sex with children. 8 years later, a new band of altogether more wholesome disciples were saying goodbye. In 1994, he was dead.
Oh Dad, we're gonna carry it on.
God bless you. It's hard for me to quit. When I'm saying goodbye, just start fading me out because I can't quit.
Rick's mother, Karen Zerby, took over as leader. At the time, Zerby, Rick and Alexia were living in Portugal. In 1997, Celeste Jones joined them in their luxury compound.
I'm pretty sure this is the one because Rick and Alexia stayed in that room there where you see going out into the patio, but that was their room. So I'm pretty sure, that's the one because, let's see. Can you see? Yeah. Okay. Wow, it's really changed. It looks like it could be in it, but it's really changed.
Zerby and her entourage left the house in 2001. While in Portugal, increasingly reclusive and going blind, she kept a tight rein on her son.
She didn't give him much responsibility. He didn't have much responsibility in the house. And that was surprising for me because as a child, we were taught that he was going to be the leader, the next leader. I think she saw him still as her little boy and not as the man that he'd become. Respecting his opinions and his wishes. It didn't see that. It was more like still telling him what to think, what to feel, what to do, and that he didn't really have anything to say back.
Although paedophilia was banned, under Karen Zerby's command, wife-swapping remained the norm.
There was a prophecy given that this house was called the House of the Open Pussy. And so they adopted this phrase as this house was the House of the Open Pussy, not meaning the house and the structure itself, but the people in it, and that's how we were supposed to be. But the essence was that sex was the medium to God, to Jesus.
Wherever we went, Rick was always, a topic of interest for people. And there's always girls that wanted to get a piece of him. And for me, it was really hard to share him. And here I was, well, what can I do, I should share him. It would be the right thing to do. It was the way we were brought up to think. And and then likewise, there were people that wanted to date me. And it was extremely hard for me because the only person in my mind was Rick, It's the only person I want to be with. I remember every time just leaving the room and just feeling really gross. I can't explain the feeling. Sometimes nothing would happen, but just being in the room with that person, I hated it. I really didn't like it. And every time Rick was gone, oh my God, I'd be crying. I was beside myself, and we struggled a lot with that, a lot.
They sure fucked up our brains. Used us as slaves, because that's what we were, every last fucking one of us. No matter how we were treated, we were fucking slaves. Just there for those sick fuckers' pleasure. That's all it was. That's the way it was at Grandpa and Mama's house.
Rick showed little appetite for the mantle of leadership forced upon him by David Berg. As he grew older, he became increasingly angry with his mother, rejecting everything she stood for. In 2000, with little education and no money, Rick and Alexia left Portugal and the family for America. They went northwest to Tacoma, where they knew several ex-cult members. The couple's new life began in a cheap apartment on the edge of town.
It was just waking up every morning. It was just amazing because it was just the two of us. We chose what time we woke up. We chose what time we went to bed. We chose whether we can turn the TV on. We chose what we had for dinner. We chose if we didn't want to eat. But it was our life, There may not have been much to it, but it was ours. Every single time you ever discuss the topic of his past, of Karen, of his childhood, there was anger in there that I had never seen before. He'd just boil. And he would not know what to do with himself sometimes. He would start working out, doing push-ups, trying to exert his energy somehow.
The couple married. Rick found a job as a shipping clerk, and for a time it seemed they'd escaped their past. But ex-cult members began contacting Rick, pressurizing him to take a stand against their abusers. Raised to be leader, it was a role he found difficult to refuse.
People would ask him, why aren't you doing something about it? If you know the truth, you more than anybody else will be believed because of where you were. They're like, you owe it to us, And here he is. He's got a good job. He's got a happy life. In his heart, he didn't think it was fair for him to have been given that second chance when there were kids out there that were hurting.
Rick's thoughts turned to revenge, and he began forming a plan. In the summer of 2004, now aged 29, he left Alexia in Tacoma and drove south to Arizona.
My mom's gonna pay for that. She's gonna pay dearly, one way or another. If I don't get to her, if I don't get to her and life goes on, I'm gonna keep hunting her in the next life, let me tell you. Here in our great state of Arizona, Jesus land, as some people call it, if you catch an adult sexually abusing a minor, if you catch them in the act, you can walk up to them and execute them, and it be a justifiable homicide, a legal shooting.
As leader of a cult with many enemies, Karen Zerby's whereabouts were a closely guarded secret. When Rick left the family, he broke off all contact with her. So when he decided to challenge his mother over the abuse he had suffered, he had to find her first.
I knew that he had a plan to find his mother. I knew that that's all he was really wanted to do. He really wanted to confront her face to face and ask her, you know, and get some answers.
He was searching for his meaning in life. He really was. And I think he finally came up with the conclusion that his reason for living was to make right his mother's wrongs.
In the summer of 2004, news reached Rick that his mother had recently visited his grandparents in a Tucson retirement home linked to the family. In September, he moved to the city and waited for her to make an appearance. He made contact with his aunt, Zerby's sister, who lives in Tucson and shuns the cult.
I mean, this must have been very difficult for you because so much of his anger was directed at his mother, your sister. I mean, you were, caught in the middle of this, in a sense?
No, I wasn't caught in the middle. He was my nephew. He needed help. He was the one that was going to be helped. And any anger he had a right to it. His mother didn't take care of him. He didn't have a mother.
Growing up where he was and not doing drugs, getting out, you know, I thought, you know, you're amazing that you've gotten out, you know, and this is the first step. And you're struggling right now. It's very difficult, but take another step. Keep taking one step at a time.
He sat one time and just said, I don't know. I don't know if I can go on. And this was probably a week or so before. And I had known that it was coming. It wasn't a matter of maybe it'll come. It was a matter of when is it going to happen.
Rick rented a room in a rough part of town and found a job as an electrician. He practiced martial arts at a local gym and joined a gun club. And he waited for his mother. Four months after arriving in Tucson, Rick set up his new video camera and pressed record.
This need that I have, this need, it's not a want, it's a fucking need, and I wish it wasn't, but it is. It's a need for revenge. It's a need for justice. Because I can't go on like this.
Blythe, California Police Department contacted us on the morning of January 9th. They found a suicide victim by the name of Ricky Rodriguez. And upon contacting his wife in Washington, they found out that Ricky lived here at this apartment complex. And he had mentioned some things to her that were somewhat alarming, that there possibly might be a murder victim here in his apartment. We walked in, and the apartment was relatively clean and well kept. And a female victim was laying, an elderly female, she was laying on the carpet. It appeared that her throat had been slashed. There were some defensive wounds to her arms, some cuts on her arms as well.
The woman Rick killed wasn't his mother. It was her close confidant, Angela Smith. Smith had helped raise Rick and features in the story of Davidito under the pseudonym Sue. He arranged to meet her early on the evening of January the 8th, planning to force her to reveal his mother's whereabouts.
I'm not trained in torture methods, which is what I'm gonna have to make do. I got my drill here. The reason why it's got this fucking padding on it is just to try to silence it a bit, because I'm in an apartment. I got a soldering iron, heat, it's rather crude implements. I think can work wonders, especially if it's used in the right way. But I'm not trained. I don't know how to fucking do this. I don't even want to fucking do this. God damn it.
As Rick drove to his death, he called his wife 1,500 miles away in Tacoma one last time.
He said the hardest thing about it is that as she was dying, he said she didn't understand what she had done. And I'm like, who? He's like, she didn't get it. These people don't get it. He says, I wasn't expecting that answer. I don't understand how they cannot see what they have done.
Despite the savagery of the murder, there was no evidence of torture. And it's not clear whether Angela told Rick where his mother was. Nor is it clear whether he set off across the desert to hunt down his mother, or see his wife, or simply find a quiet place to die.
It's pretty extraordinary to want to kill your own mother, isn't it?
Well, when your mother fucks you as a child, and instead of being your mother, loving and, and endearing and teaching you in the right ways, instead, when you fuck your little boy, that'll do that to you. That might make you want to kill your mother when you grow up. It really does fuck your head up.
But yeah, I mean, I guess I fucking said all I can say, and what can I say, I would have a peaceful, happy life. I tried. I did. Maybe I didn't try hard enough. Gave it what I could, I did.
He wanted to understand. He wanted to care. And he wanted to do something about the pain that I had suffered and others had suffered, like himself.
And I think many times about why did he have to do it that way? Why would he cross that line to actually kill someone? And you know what? And the only thing I can think of is because I think he realized that that's what it would take, something like that, in order to get people's attention.